along a single, life-giving river, a civilization bloomed, ancient Egypt. The Great Pyramids and the Sphinx still stand as testaments to their ambition and belief in eternity. Egypt's story is one of pharaohs, gods, and mysteries that endure. The Valley of the Kings hides treasures and secrets like Tutankhamun's tomb that continue to fascinate the world. We'll journey through dynasties, temples, and the lives of both rulers and ordinary people. Welcome to the land of the pharaohs, where history becomes legend. In Egypt, the divine and mortal were inseparable. The Nile's annual flood brought life, seen as a gift from the gods. The pharaoh, a living god, maintained cosmic order, Ma'at, ensuring prosperity. Religion shaped every aspect of life, inspiring pyramids, temples, and sacred texts. Their faith fueled innovation and unity, building an empire that lasted millennia. To understand Egypt is to see a world alive with gods and eternal purpose. Over 5,000 years ago, scattered tribes settled along the Nile, forming two rival kingdoms. Egypt's history is a cycle of unity, glory, and turmoil. Old, middle, and new kingdoms separated by times of chaos. Legendary figures like Narmer, Khufu, Hatshepsut, Ramses, and Cleopatra shaped its destiny. Egypt's rise as a superpower and its eventual decline reveal the forces that build and break civilizations. This is not just a tale of kings, but of a people's enduring spirit. Our journey uncovers how Egypt thrived, transformed, and faded into legend. Before all else, there was the Nile, the source of life in a harsh desert. Its annual flood brought rich black soil, making Egypt the Black Land and enabling abundant harvests. The river united distant villages, serving as Egypt's highway for trade, travel, and communication. The Nile's rhythm shaped the calendar, beliefs, and daily life. Egyptians saw it as a divine gift, essential for survival and prosperity. Too little or too much flood brought famine or destruction, teaching respect for balance. The Nile was Egypt's heart, binding its people and shaping its destiny. Egypt began as two lands: Upper Egypt in the south, Lower Egypt in the north, each with its own crown, customs, and patron goddess. The valley and the delta were worlds apart, symbolized by the lotus and papyrus. For centuries, these kingdoms coexisted, sometimes in peace, often in rivalry. Their division reflected Egypt's dualities: desert and sown, life and death. Ambition and conflict set the stage for unification. Out of this struggle, a single ruler would emerge to forge a nation. Narmer, king of Upper Egypt, launched a campaign to conquer the north around 3100 BC. The Narmer palette depicts his brutal victory and the unification of the two lands. He created the double crown, symbolizing a single, indivisible Egypt. Narmer founded Memphis, ruling as the first pharaoh of a united kingdom. His reign marked the dawn of recorded history in Egypt. Narmer was more than a conqueror. He was the architect of a civilization. Egypt's story truly begins with his vision and power. With the unification of Egypt under Narmer, a new era began: the early dynastic period. This was the age of the first pharaohs, the kings who built upon Narmer's legacy and solidified the power of the central state. These early rulers, with names like Horaha, Jer, and Den, were pioneers of kingship. They established the fundamental traditions of Egyptian governance and religion that would last for thousands of years. They were seen as gods on earth, the earthly embodiment of the falcon god Horus. Their authority was absolute, their task to maintain Ma'at, the divine order and balance of the universe. These early kings worked tirelessly to consolidate their control over the newly united kingdom. They established a national administration with officials and scribes to manage taxes, agriculture, and public works. Scribes, using the new invention of hieroglyphic writing, kept detailed records of grain harvests and livestock, creating a powerful system of bureaucracy. The pharaohs also led military campaigns into neighboring lands like Nubia and Libya, securing Egypt's borders and controlling valuable trade routes. Their efforts transformed Egypt from a collection of feuding territories into a powerful and organized state with a single divine leader at its head. A key focus for these first pharaohs was their own divinity and their journey into the afterlife. They believed that death was not an end but a transition to an eternal existence. To ensure their successful rebirth, they built elaborate tombs at the sacred site of Abydos. These were not yet pyramids, but large, rectangular, flat-topped structures made of mud brick called mastabas. Inside, the kings were buried with an incredible array of goods for the next world: pottery, furniture, tools, and even sacrificed servants who were meant to accompany their master into eternity. These tombs were powerful statements of the pharaoh's wealth and his unique relationship with the gods. This period laid the essential groundwork for the glories that were to come. The establishment of a divine monarchy, a centralized government, and a sophisticated writing system created a stable and prosperous society. The wealth generated by the Nile, now managed by an efficient state, could be directed toward monumental projects that honored the gods and the king. The early pharaohs forged the identity of ancient Egypt, creating a culture unified by a common ruler, a shared religion, and the life-giving river. The age of the pyramids was just around the corner, waiting to be born from this solid foundation. The foundation laid by the first pharaohs gave rise to an era of unprecedented ambition and achievement. This was the Old Kingdom, a period of stability and immense wealth that began around 2700 BC. It is famously known as the Age of the Pyramids. The pharaohs of this era were not just rulers, they were living gods whose power seemed limitless. They commanded vast resources and a loyal population, united by a profound faith. This combination of divine authority and national prosperity unleashed a wave of architectural innovation that would forever define Egypt in the eyes of the world. The simple mastaba tombs of the past were about to evolve into something truly spectacular. The revolution in architecture began with a pharaoh named Djoser and his brilliant vizier and chief architect Imhotep. Imhotep was a true genius, a master of medicine, engineering, and administration. For his king's tomb at Saqqara, he envisioned something far grander than a simple mastaba. He decided to stack 6 mastabas of decreasing size on top of one another, creating a towering structure of stone. This was the world's first pyramid, the Step Pyramid. It was not just a tomb, it was a stone representation of a stairway, a ramp that the pharaoh's soul could climb to join the immortal gods in the heavens. It was a bold statement of divine power. Imhotep's creation was a monumental leap forward. It was the first large-scale structure in history to be built entirely of stone, a material that signified permanence and eternity. The complex surrounding the pyramid was equally impressive. A vast ceremonial city for the dead king, complete with temples, courtyards, and chapels, all enclosed by a massive wall. The project required an incredible level of organization, from quarrying and transporting millions of tons of limestone to marshalling a huge workforce of skilled craftsmen and laborers. The Step Pyramid was a testament to the pharaoh's absolute control over the land and its people, a project that changed architecture forever. The innovation did not stop with Djoser. The pharaohs of the 4th dynasty, which began with a king named Sneferu, sought to perfect the pyramid form. Sneferu himself was a prolific builder, constructing 3 massive pyramids. His architects experimented with angles and techniques, learning from their mistakes, such as the collapsed pyramid at Macedon and the oddly shaped bent pyramid at Dashur. Their relentless pursuit of perfection finally culminated in the Red Pyramid, the first successful, true, smooth-sided pyramid. Sneferu's reign set the stage for the ultimate expression of pyramid building, which would be realized by his son, the great pharaoh Khufu. The construction of the Great Pyramids at Giza was a monumental undertaking. This was not the work of slaves, but of a highly organized society. Tens of thousands of skilled workers were employed year-round, joined by farmers during the Nile flood. Laborers were housed, fed, and paid. The logistics were staggering. The Great Pyramid of Khufu is composed of over 2 million stone blocks. Society was structured like a pyramid itself, from the pharaoh to the farmers. Everyone had a role in maintaining cosmic and social order. The pyramid was a symbol of their collective faith and a testament to their civilization. In the Old Kingdom, the pharaoh was the absolute center of the universe more than a mere mortal king. He was a living god, the physical manifestation of Horus and the son of Ra. His divine status gave him complete authority over every aspect of Egyptian life. He owned all the land, commanded the army, and was the supreme judge. His primary duty was to maintain Ma'at, the sacred balance of order, truth, and justice. The pharaoh delegated authority to a powerful chief minister known as the vizier, the most powerful official in Egypt, second only to the king. He was the sole intermediary between the gods and humanity. His successful journey into the afterlife and his transformation into the god Osiris would guarantee the continuity of the cosmos and the eternal prosperity of Egypt. For over 400 years, the Old Kingdom seemed, well, like an invincible and eternal powerhouse. The pharaohs ruled with absolute authority, their divinity never really questioned, and their pyramids stood as monuments to what looked like limitless power. But, beneath the surface of this golden age, there were subtle cracks beginning to show. The very projects that defined the era's greatness, they also contained the seeds of its eventual downfall. Building those pyramids required an astronomical investment of wealth and resources. Each massive tomb complex was given vast agricultural estates and legions of priests, all tax-exempt, just to keep the dead king's cult going for eternity. Over generations, this practice started to drain the royal treasury. As more and more land and wealth were handed over to the tax-exempt temples and mortuary cults, the economic power of the central government slowly eroded. The pharaohs of the late Old Kingdom, like Pepi II, who, by the way, is said to have ruled for over 90 years, found their personal wealth and influence slipping away. At the same time, the power of the provincial governors, the nomarchs, began to grow. These officials, stationed far from the capital at Memphis, started ruling their provinces more like hereditary lords than appointed officials, even building their own lavish tombs and, challenging the central authority. Then came a third, devastating blow from the environment itself. The reliable and life-giving floods of the Nile, which had been the bedrock of Egypt's prosperity for centuries, began to fail. There was a period of prolonged and severe drought that struck Egypt and, actually, the entire Near East. With lower flood levels, agricultural yields plummeted, leading to widespread famine and social unrest. People started to question the divine nature of their king. If the pharaoh was truly a god, why couldn't he guarantee the bounty of the Nile anymore? His failure to maintain the cosmic order shattered the ideological foundation of his rule. The combination of a weakened economy, the rise of powerful local nobles, and a catastrophic environmental crisis, it just proved to be too much. The authority of the pharaoh crumbled. The unity that Nama had forged centuries before simply dissolved. The Old Kingdom, that magnificent age of the pyramids, slid into chaos and civil war. Egypt broke apart into smaller competing states ruled by local warlords. This dark and turbulent era, known as the First Intermediate Period, marked the dramatic end of Egypt's first great age of glory. The dream of a single, unified, eternal kingdom was, shattered. Out of the chaos, a new dawn broke for Egypt. Led by Mentuhotep II, Thebes reunited the two lands, marking the beginning of the Middle Kingdom. This era brought stability, prosperity, and a cultural renaissance. Pharaohs were pragmatic rulers who saw themselves as shepherds of their people, focusing on projects that benefited the country. They dug irrigation canals, creating fertile farmland and restoring faith in the monarchy. Massive forts secured vital resources and protected Egypt from invasion. The Middle Kingdom was a golden age for art and literature, exploring themes of justice and divinity. This era restored the glory of the past and laid a stronger foundation for the future. After the Middle Kingdom faded, Egypt was ruled by the Hyksos. When they were driven out, the New Kingdom was born. It was the most glorious era in Egyptian history. Among its rulers was Hatshepsut. She declared herself pharaoh, an unprecedented move. To legitimize her reign, Hatshepsut used propaganda, depicting herself with symbols of kingship. Her rule was a time of peace and prosperity. Her masterpiece was her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri. She also organized a trading mission to the land of Punt. Hatshepsut ruled successfully for over 2 decades. After her death, Thutmose III had her image erased from monuments, but her story survived. Thutmose III, determined to make Egypt an imperial superpower, unleashed the military might restrained for decades. Arguably the greatest military commander in Egyptian history, Thutmose led 17 campaigns into the Near East. The New Kingdom saw a professional army with advanced technology. Egyptians perfected the horse-drawn chariot. Wealth from conquered territories fueled construction. Thebes became the most magnificent city, with pharaohs lavishing treasure upon Karnak. This era peaked under Ramses the Great, who ruled for 67 years. He commissioned colossal statues and temples like Abu Simbel, a declaration of Egyptian power. Amidst a glorious age, Akhenaten challenged Egyptian religion. He rejected traditional gods, especially Amun-Ra, promoting the Aten, represented by the sun disk. This unprecedented move towards monotheism sparked a revolution. Akhenaten abandoned Thebes, building Akhetaten. With Nefertiti, he presided over a new culture. The Amarna style broke traditions, depicting the family with realism. Akhenaten's revolution died with him. His city was abandoned. Tutankhaten, his son, restored the old gods, changing his name to Tutankhamun. His tomb's discovery revealed Egypt's wealth and glory. The Golden Age could not last forever. An empire built on conquest is a hungry beast, demanding new wealth. By the end of the New Kingdom, foreign tribute ran dry as the Hittite Empire challenged Egypt's dominance. Maintaining a large army became a heavy burden. The pharaohs inherited an exhausted empire, struggling to live up to their ancestors. Immense wealth created divisions, with the priesthood of Amun-Ra wielding immense political influence. Tomb robberies revealed corruption, a sign that respect for the pharaoh was collapsing. The magic of the monarchy was fading. The Sea Peoples delivered the final blow. Ramses III defeated them, but it was a hollow victory. The war exhausted Egypt, leaving it impoverished. The age of empire was over. Egypt turned inward, its glory a fading memory. After the collapse of the New Kingdom, Egypt entered its third intermediate period. The country was weak and divided. The Nubians seized this opportunity, marching north, not as invaders, but as restorers of order. They conquered the Nile Valley, establishing the 25th dynasty. The Kushite pharaohs ruled for nearly a century. However, their reign coincided with the rise of the Assyrian Empire, armed with iron weapons. The confrontation was a disaster for Egypt. The Assyrians marched down the Nile, sacking cities. The black pharaohs were driven back to Nubia. Egypt was reduced to a province of a foreign empire. The Assyrian domination of Egypt was brutal, but it did not last. Their empire was overstretched, and they found it difficult to rule a land so far from their homeland. They installed local puppet kings to govern on their behalf. One of these rulers, from a city in the delta called Sais, cleverly used the Assyrians' preoccupation with wars elsewhere to assert his independence. This king, Psamtik I, managed to reunify Egypt and usher in one last brief period of native Egyptian rule. This final gasp of glory is known as the Late Period or the Said Renaissance. It was a time of looking back, a nostalgic attempt to recapture the greatness of ages past. The pharaohs of this era consciously imitated the art, architecture, and religious practices of the Old and Middle Kingdoms. They wanted to erase the humiliation of foreign conquest and reconnect with their magnificent heritage. They revived ancient traditions and commissioned beautiful statues carved in the classic styles of 1,000 years before. The economy recovered and trade flourished, especially with the Greeks, who were now a rising power in the Mediterranean. For a moment, it seemed as if Egypt might be able to reclaim its former strength and independence. It was a final, brilliant sunset before the long night. But the world had changed. Egypt was no longer a superpower in a world of small city-states. It was now a pawn in the struggles between vast, powerful empires. The new giant on the block was Persia. In 525 BC, the mighty Persian king Cambyses II invaded Egypt. The Egyptian army, led by the last true native pharaoh, Psamtik III, was decisively defeated at the Battle of Pelusium. According to the Greek historian Herodotus, the Persians cleverly placed cats and other animals sacred to the Egyptians at the front of their lines, causing the pious Egyptian soldiers to hesitate. Egypt fell, and the Persian king became its new pharaoh. This time, there would be no recovery. The Persian conquest marked the definitive end of 3,000 years of native Egyptian rule. For the next 2 centuries, Egypt was a satrapy, a mere province of the vast Persian Empire. While Egyptian culture and religion continued, political power was now firmly in the hands of foreigners. The Age of the Pharaohs, the glorious line of kings stretching back to Nama, had been broken. The land that had once dominated the ancient world was now subject to a distant emperor. A new chapter of foreign domination had begun, one from which Egypt would never fully emerge. The Egyptians deeply resented Persian rule. In 332 BC, Alexander the Great swept in from the west. He shattered the Persian armies and arrived at the gates of Egypt, not as a conqueror, but as a liberator. The Egyptians welcomed him. Alexander embraced Egyptian culture, had himself proclaimed the son of Amun, and was crowned pharaoh. He founded Alexandria, destined to become a center of trade and culture. Alexander soon departed, never to return. His empire was divided, and Egypt fell to Ptolemy, who brought Alexander's body back to Alexandria. Ptolemy declared himself pharaoh, establishing a dynasty that would rule for 300 years. The age of the Greek pharaohs had begun. The Ptolemaic dynasty ruled Egypt as Greek pharaohs, adopting Egyptian titles and building temples. However, they remained fundamentally Greek, ruling from Alexandria, the Mediterranean's intellectual center. Under the Ptolemies, Egypt experienced wealth and cultural brilliance, a fusion of Greek and Egyptian traditions. Yet their rule was marked by internal conflict and power struggles. Into this world, Cleopatra VII was born. Unlike her predecessors, Cleopatra learned Egyptian, connecting with her subjects. She ascended to a weak throne shadowed by Rome. Cleopatra aimed to restore Egypt's greatness, using her intellect and political skill against Rome. Her struggle would become the final chapter in pharaonic Egypt's story. Cleopatra's strategy led her into alliances with powerful Romans. First, Julius Caesar, who became her lover and political ally. After Caesar's assassination, she chose Mark Antony. They formed an alliance, falling in love and dreaming of a new empire. Octavian used propaganda against them, leading to war. Defeated at the Battle of Actium, they fled to Egypt. Antony took his life. Cleopatra, refusing capture, chose death. She died by a poisonous asp, a symbol of Egyptian royalty. Egypt was annexed by Rome, ending the Age of the Pharaohs. The story of ancient Egypt concludes with the death of Cleopatra and the absorption of the kingdom into the vast Roman Empire. Under Roman rule, the ancient culture slowly began to fade. Yet the legacy of ancient Egypt was not truly buried. The Greeks absorbed many of its ideas in science, mathematics, and philosophy. The Romans were themselves conquered by its splendor, transporting massive obelisks to decorate their capital city. Even the fundamental concepts of Western civilization carry echoes of the Nile Valley. The physical monuments left behind are perhaps Egypt's most powerful legacy. The pyramids, temples, and tombs have stood for millennia as a testament to the ambition and ingenuity of their creators. They are a permanent declaration of a culture that believed in eternity and very nearly achieved it. The final fall of pharaonic Egypt teaches us a profound lesson about the nature of civilization itself. It shows us that no power is immune to the forces of change. The story of Egypt is a dramatic cycle of glorious birth, magnificent achievement, slow decay, and eventual collapse. Its echoes continue to resonate. For centuries, the story of ancient Egypt was veiled behind hieroglyphs, known only through Greek accounts and biblical stories. This changed with the Rosetta Stone's discovery, unlocking the pharaoh's language. This launched Egyptology, fueling our fascination. Pyramids, mummies, and gods became globally recognizable. Tutankhamun's tomb sparked a passion for uncovering secrets beneath the sand. Egypt is a source of endless mystery. The pharaoh's story mirrors our world, teaching lessons about leadership and innovation. It's a journey into what it means to be human. Their story is immortal, waiting for new generations to discover its secrets.